Welcome to Morning Mindset, a daily dose of practical wit and wisdom with a professional educator and trainer, Amazon best-selling author, United States Marine, television and radio host, Paul G. Markle. Each episode will focus on positive and productive ways to strengthen your mindset and help you improve your relationships, career goals, and overall well-being. Please welcome your host, Paul G. Markle.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get back into Morning Mindset. And this is Morning Mindset 2020, or at least it's 2020 when I recorded this. I don't know if you're going to be listening to it in the future or not. But if you are listening to it in the future, hello from the past. What are we going to talk about today? Let's continue with my Fighting Solves Everything motif, the Fighting Solves Everything theme. And in my book, Fighting Solves Everything, I devoted a chapter to avoiding the victim mentality. Yes, indeed. And what does that mean? Well, it should be obvious, but let me dive into it. Number one, when humans encounter a problem, a difficulty, an unexpected hurdle, whether it is an illness or whether it is a loss of a job or whether it is the breakup with a spouse or a loved one or what have you, the natural human reaction is to look for someone to blame. Look for someone else to blame. Look for something to blame. And to assign yourself the role of the victim. It's not my fault. It's somebody else's fault. It's this person's fault. It's that person's fault. It's cancer's fault. It's this illness or this disease's fault. And I am a victim of that. Yes, I'm a victim. Therefore, I can feel sorry for myself. Well, you can feel sorry for yourself for a little bit. And I experienced that, and everybody who gets, I guess, the big C diagnosis goes through that. But you can't live like that. Yeah, I will admit that there were some days early on that I just didn't even want to get out of bed. And I would lay there thinking, why is this happening to me? It shouldn't be happening to me. This is not supposed to happen to me. It happens to other people. But it was happening to me. Now, when I went to the cancer center over there in Salt Lake City, I had to go to the cancer center, and I went in there, and if you guys know me, I think you guys, if you've been listening for a while, know me well enough that I do not embrace the victim mentality, and I do not want to be a victim. And I saw people that, well, quite frankly, they looked like they were just sitting around waiting to die. And you're like, don't be judgmental, Paul. And I'm like, I'm not being judgmental, but that's the impression that I got. The impression that I got was that there were some people that were just literally sitting around there, and they looked like they were sitting there waiting to die. And I had to make the decision that I was not going to be one of those people. I was not going to allow myself to be a victim or to be portrayed as a victim. That was one of the big struggles that I had to undergo at the very beginning, was whether or not to even let anyone know about the trouble that I was going through, because I didn't want to be cancer boy. I didn't want to be, oh, poor Paul. I didn't want to be that. I didn't want people to know. But, my wife and some friends are like, look, you're kind of a public figure, and you can't just disappear. If you just disappear, people are going to want to know why, and you can't lie to them. So I ended up going public with it. But the fact of the matter is, avoiding the victim mentality is something that you have to do in a positive and direct manner. You have to take steps. If you want to avoid the victim mentality, and I would say that you should, you're going to have to take steps, very deliberate steps, to not be a victim, to not perceive yourself as a victim, and to not allow other people to see you as a victim. Now, one of the ways that I did this was I decided that I was not going to wear the typical hospital gown. And I'm sure that everyone in my audience, whether you've been a patient or a visitor, at some point in time, you've been in a hospital, right? Or a treatment facility or a care facility. And they have the generic hospital gowns, right? And they all basically look about the same, and they're all in various states of disrepair. Some of them have the tie down, some of them don't. Some of them have the snaps, some of them don't. Some of them have broken snaps, some of them have holes in them, whatever. And I walked into on the first day of my treatment, and there was a waiting area, and there were other people like me that were ill, and they were sitting around in hospital gowns, and we all looked like we were sitting around waiting to die. And I said, I did my first treatment, and I found Nancy, and I said, that's my wife. And I said, this is bull crap. Excuse my French. I said, this is a bunch of bull crap. And I said, I'm not going to wear one of these hospital gowns. And because when you sit around wearing a hospital gown in a waiting area, you look like a victim. And I'm not going to look like a victim. And she laughed at me because she knows me. She's like, well, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. I'm going to wear scrub tops or something. But I'm not going to do that. And so my wife, who is a wonderful woman, she knows me. And she also knows that my mother is a seamstress. And my mother also used to run a nurse's uniform shop. So she reached out to my mother and she said, hey, this is what Paul wants to do. Or this is the situation he's in. And my mother overnighted or express mailed me a men's scrub top that she had altered, because in my situation I had to be able to get on this machine and they needed to bare my chest so that they could do all the stuff, right? So it had to be specifically tailored to me. And it was navy blue, and it had a men's, I can't remember right now what kind of pattern it had, but it had a manly pattern. So when I showed up the very next day for my treatment, I was sitting in the waiting room, but I wasn't wearing one of these old hospital gowns that somebody probably died in last week and they threw it in the laundry and washed it. I was wearing my own personal medical uniform, or whatever you want to call it. And when it came time for me to be called back for my appointment, my team, they all commented on it. They're like, oh, what do you have there, and where did you get it? And that's really cool, and that's interesting, and no one's ever done that before. And I said, well, you're not dealing with the average person here there, Jack. You're dealing with Paul Markle. And my mother actually, within the next week, she made 3 more manly scrub tops. She even made one out of United States Marine Corps Eagle Globe and Anchor material, because, I am a United States Marine, and I have been for a long, long time. I became a United States Marine in, 1987. Yes, I did. So, and you say, well, BFD, Paul, it's just semantics. No, it's not semantics. It does make a difference. How you look and how you appear makes a difference. If you want to be a victim, if you just want to sit around on the couch and cry and say, poor me, and look at me, and I'm a victim, you can do that, but it's not productive. And if you're going to be alive, you should live. And that was essentially the theme that I tried to hold dear to the entire time that I was going through my troubles, was if you're going to be alive, you need to live. And if you're just sitting around being a victim and allowing people to portray you as a victim, and that's another thing, is don't allow other people to put you in the victim box. Now, in addition to that, there's one other thing that I would do. I did many things, but I'll just give you one more, because we like to keep these basically 1 cup of coffee length. And actually, I do have my coffee today. And it is delicious. I'm drinking it out of my Fighting Solves Everything coffee mug. And if you want one of those, go to fightingsolves.com. But I digress. I made sure that I listened to motivational music when because I had to sit in the waiting room, sometimes for, just 5 or 10 minutes, sometimes for half an hour or whatever. I had a scheduled time, but, things always happen. And I tried to make sure that I had my headphones with me every time I went, because I wanted to listen to music. Unfortunately, like airports, hospital waiting rooms often have a television and the television is mounted up on the wall, and it's blaring out inane nonsense like CNN or what have you. And there was no way I wanted to sit there waiting for my cancer treatment, listening to CNN or MSNBC or anything similar to that. So I made sure that I had my music. And that was and it was motivational music, and it pumped me up. And it was one of the ways that I was able, and I mean, I was there for cancer treatment. And when you're doing that, there's not too many more serious or solemn things that you could be doing in your life. But I didn't want to sit there, focusing on that and bad news and what have you. So I made sure that I had motivational music, and I listened to my music, and that's what I did. That was one of the ways that I used to avoid the victim mentality. Now, your situation is obviously going to be far different than mine, and you're going to have to figure out yourself what is going to be your way, what is going to be your tool, what is going to be your method when you encounter difficulties, when you encounter troubles in your life. How are you going to avoid the victim mentality? Because we can't just talk about it. We have to actually do it. It's like fighting solves everything. You can't just say words. You have to put it into practice. It has to be something that's extremely and very deliberate. So how are you going to very deliberately avoid the victim mentality and get out of that box and not allow other people to portray you as a victim? And the fact is, when you're going through a difficult situation, other people know it. They see you, and they watch and they see how you deal with it. And how you deal with it may be an inspiration to others, and you might not even know that you're inspiring others, but you are, because people are always watching you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us for the Morning Mindset Podcast. I'm glad to be back behind this microphone. If you would like to support the show, there's an easy way you can do it. You can go to fightingsolves.com, and you can order the Fighting Solves Everything book, or you can pop on over to amazon.com. You might have heard of it. It's just a little website, and they sell books in addition to everything else under the sun. And you can pick up the Morning Mindset book, 30 days, a 30-day plan to a more positive and productive life. It's by me, your host, Paul Markle, and you can get it as a paperback book, or you can get it as a Kindle version, which means, boom, you can download it and be reading it in 5 minutes. All right, I am Paul Markle, your host, and I will talk to you again real soon.
Thank you for spending time with us today. To get show notes, submit a topic request, and for more from your host, Paul G. Markle, visit morningmindsetpodcast.com. That's morningmindsetpodcast.com. Please leave a review for this podcast on your favorite podcast player. We appreciate your time and effort, and we look forward to reading your honest feedback.